What is mercury toxicity? Mercury toxicity is that the vapors which are released by the amalgam restoration may enter your bloodstream via the lung alveoli, and this can cause many problems in the patient. How will you be exposed to mercury in the clinic? Either as a raw material or while you are using it in the clinical procedure, or amalgam scrap, that is whatever remaining amalgam is there, or if you spill mercury, or if you try to remove old restoration. All of this will release mercury vapors in the environment around you, and you might inhale it, and from your lungs it might go into your bloodstream. Because of this mercury vapors, there were 3 wars on amalgam. Just like 3 world wars, we have 3 wars of amalgam. The first war was in 1845, and there they said that only gold can be used and you can't use silver amalgam. Then came Professor Stock in 1920, who said that absorption of mercury is causing serious health problems and you should withdraw mercury from the market. And the third and the most important war in 1980, where they proved that mercury vapors from amalgam cause cardiovascular and nervous system disorder. So with all this in mind, use of amalgam is being reduced in the clinical practice nowadays, but still it has a good chunk of people preferring amalgam because of its cost and its availability. The another very important thing which happened was a Minamata disease was discovered. Now what is it? Minamata Bay in Japan, there was an accident in 1952. A Kaiso Corporation, which is a chemical plant, disposed of methyl mercury waste into the Bay Area, and this contaminated the shellfish which were consumed by the local population. Because of this, the whole population in that area, just like the COVID which we are seeing, whoever comes in contact gets it. Similarly, all those people who ate this kind of fish started having many general condition problems, and it was then named as a Minamata disease. So, and there was a Minamata convention also, which was hosted by American Dental Association, and according to them, in 2020 we should be withdrawing all the use of mercury from dental practices. How far that is applicable is yet to be seen, but that was the decision taken long back. Coming to the properties of amalgam, all the properties of amalgam are ruled by the American Dental Association specification number 1. That is, and the properties are creep, compressive strength, dimensional changes, and modulus of elasticity. Coming to the strength, there are 2 strengths in amalgam which are important to us. One is the compressive strength and the tensile strength. Amalgam's compressive strength is more, like it is around 310 megapascal, whereas its tensile strength is very less. It is only about 55 to 62 megapascals. This is the reason why we cannot have amalgam restoration in areas which are exposed to high tensile strength, because the amalgam is likely to fracture them. If you compare the low copper and high copper alloy and their strength at 1 hour and 7 days, you will see that the single composition alloy, the compressive strength is more at 1 hour also. It is almost 262 megapascal, and after 7 days it increases rapidly to 510 megapascal. So single composition alloy is favorable for all types of restoration. Dimensional changes. There are 3 distinct dimensional changes that occur in an amalgam. First is the initial contraction, second is the expansion, and then there is a limited delayed contraction. Initial contraction occurs for 20 minutes after you begin trituration, and this results because the alloy particle dissolves in the mercury. Expansion occurs because the new crystal matrix are being formed in the matrix, and there is expansion. What are the factors which will affect the dimensional changes? The first factor is the particle size and shape. Spheroidal particles can be wetted very easily and fast during the process of amalgamation, and therefore they show no apparent expansion later on. Mercury, more will be the expansion as more crystals will grow. Low mercury alloy ratio is favorable, and that is what we are using nowadays. Zinc. Zinc is one of the important constituent, but it is also responsible for the delayed expansion that occurs in the alloy. This is usually seen after 3 to 5 days, and around 400 millimicrons of expansion is reported. This happens because zinc, when exposed to moisture, reacts with the water and releases hydrogen gas, which expands the restoration. Second is the creep. It is a time-dependent plastic deformation. This is very similar to what we see in the other types of waxes also. So here in metals, the creep is time dependent, and because of the forces acting on it. ADA specification says that it should not be more than 3%, because there is a chance of marginal breakdown occurring because of the material breaking at the margins. Next comes tarnish and corrosion. Tarnish is only the surface discoloration, whereas corrosion is a physiochemical interaction which results in total deterioration and disintegration of the metal. The corrosion of amalgam is of three types. You have a galvanic corrosion, which occurs when the restoration is in contact with the adjacent non-similar metallic, like a gold crown and a silver filling. These two will interact with each other and cause deterioration of the restoration. We have stress corrosion, which occurs because the stress is different at different end, and these two different points in the same restoration will act as a two cell areas and result in stress concentration. The crevice corrosion is because the amalgam may be covered with plaque, or it may be covered with the soft tissue. This covered area will have lower oxygen and higher hydrogen ion concentration, and this will behave as a different anode and will start corroding the amalgam restoration. Next part is, if you have amalgam, then how do you manipulate it to place it in the patient's mouth? The first is the proportioning. These are the different steps. I'll take one by one. First is the dispensing or proportioning. How do you dispense, or how is the amalgam available to you? Firstly, we might get a direct pre-weighed tablets where the dispersion is by the weight and not by volume. And mercury here is 48 to 55%. Sorry. The second is dispenser. That is, you either get two different bottles or you get reusable capsules, or nowadays even disposable capsules are available. These capsules have specific amount of amalgam alloy powder and mercury placed in it, and you have to put it into the amalgamator and you can triturate it. You also get pre-amalgamated alloys, that is the mercury is already added to the amalgam powder, so that there is a less chance of you using in disproportionate amount of mercury in the mix. The advantage of these pre-measured capsule is that there is no risk of mercury vapor contamination. It limits handling of the pure mercury, and it also reduces the time that is needed for proportioning. What is the mercury to alloy ratio? Earlier we were using 7:5, and we have come to 5:5. This is mainly possible because of use of mechanical amalgamators. This reduction in the percentage of mercury was also known as IMS technique or EMAS technique, as some people call it. The advantage of it being that it reduces the mercury in fully hardened restoration and permits better mercury hygiene procedures. Coming to trituration. Trituration is a term which is used to describe mixing of the alloy particles with mercury. You have two types of trituration, hand mixing and mechanical mixing. Both can be easily followed. In hand mixing, you use a mortar and pestle. In mechanical, you use a amalgamator. The advantage of hand is that you don't require special equipment, but it takes more time, almost 45 seconds, and needs some expertise. Well, whereas mechanical only can take place in 5 to 20 seconds and no expertise is needed. What is the difference between the good, well triturated amalgam and a badly triturated, that is under or a over triturated mix? A normal mix, when you mix it, it will be shiny, smooth, and slightly warm when you remove it from the capsule. This type of amalgam will give good strength to tarnish and corrosion to your restoration. Whereas the under triturated, when you have not mixed it properly, it will feel rough and grainy, and it will harden very rapidly. Such mixes, when used as restorations, will have less strength and will corrode easily. Over triturated mask is like a soupy mask, which is very difficult to remove from a capsule or to manipulate. It has less working time. The higher contraction of amalgam is seen in this type of mix, and there is definitely increased creep. Once you triturate the amalgam, then you are to move the amalgam between your finger, of course by placing it in a rubber dam or a glove, and just try to squeeze it. This squeezing helps in removing excess of mercury. Even mechanical mulling is possible, and mechanical mulling is done in the same capsule which you have put in the amalgamator. But while placing the capsule in the amalgamator, you are removing the small pestle that is inside the capsule. After the mask is ready, then you have to carry that mask and place it into the cavity and condense it properly. The condensation is important for a good marginal adaptation, bonding between the incremental layers, and reduction of the internal porosity. Minimum pressure of 4 to 6 pounds is needed for condensation of a lathe cut alloy, whereas spherical alloy require only 2 to 3 pounds. Carving. Once you have condensed the amalgam in the cavity, the next thing is to carve the restoration. For carving, what we do is we always overfill the cavity. We overfill the cavity because with every layer that is put in the cavity and the condensation pressure you apply, mercury comes up onto the surface of the restoration. So this mercury rich amalgam surface has to be carved out and removed. And it should not, but one should always remember that carving should not be started before the amalgam sets, and it should be done from the restoration to the tooth. Burnishing. Restoration is smoothened by burnishing the surface of the margin. You have a pre-carve burnishing and a post-carve burnishing. The pre-carve, of course, is before the carving. Here again it is being done because it pulls out the mercury from the restoration. And post-carve is done immediately after the anatomic carving because this will adapt the restoration properly to the tooth surface. Last comes the finishing and polishing of the restoration, because no matter how well you burnish, there is always roughness left onto the surface of the restoration, and we have special burrs and cups and abrasives available to give the final finish to the amalgam restoration. But this is done only after 24 hours because amalgam restoration to settle down properly and set completely take as much hours. Mercury hygiene is a very important aspect in our operatory, and therefore we should always see to it that the place where we are working is well ventilated and without carpets. You store the mercury properly without allowing it to spill, and use it efficiently in your practices. If the operator accidentally comes in contact with the mercury, you have to wash your hands vigorously with soap and water immediately for more than 20 seconds. If you have to discard mercury, you have to store the mercury under water, which contains sodium thiosulfate, which is nothing but the fixer that we use in the oral radiology labs, and the glycerin. Periodically, you should check the mercury vapor levels in your operatory so that there is no intoxication because of the mercury vapors. To conclude, amalgam restorations as such are the backbone of dentistry till today. Of course, we are changing rapidly, but the knowledge of what happened in the past and how dentistry evolved is very much closely related to the development of the amalgam alloy, and it forms a very important topic in your second year, especially for the dental materials class.